सदाशिवसमारम्भाम् शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। So, which verse are we now on?
41st.
41. So we will chant that. Shri Bhagavanuvacha.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha.
Prapya punyakritam lokan. Ushitva shashvati samaha. Suchinam Srimatam Gehe. Yogo Bhrashto Bhijayate. Okay, so you have to recall Arjuna's question. What was the question? That he said that if one doesn't succeed in attaining moksha in this practice of yoga in the current life, what is going to be your problem? Will it not be like a small cloud which has been, taken away from the big cloud? So he said, Chinna Brahmiva Nasyati. Will it not be destroyed? And Krishna said earlier in the last verse that no, for the person who has come onto the spiritual path, there will never be any downfall. And so here he is explaining. So, Punya Kritam Lokan Prapya. Punya Kritam means people who have been doing karma, which is Punya Karma. People who have been doing good karma, which has generated Punyam. So, Punya Kritam Lokan. People who have attained those worlds which are attained by people who have done good karma. So, Prapya Punya Kritam Lokan, having gone to these worlds which are available or to which people who have done good karma, they go after the death. Then what happens there? Ushitva Shashvati. Ushitva means having lived there. Shashvati. Shashvatam is actually means eternal, but here it means for many, many, many years. Shashvati, for many, many years having lived there. And whom are we talking about? Samaha Yoga Bhrashtaha. One who has fallen from yoga. So fallen from yoga is not that he has given up yoga. It just means that he has been regular in his practice, but he has not got the final destination, which is moksha. So this word you must remember, yoga bhrashtaha. Doesn't come anywhere else, but we use it very often. And only in the Gita you will find yoga bhrashtaha. A person who is done yoga for very many years, for very many lifetimes, but as for some reason, for some problem, he has not been able to get moksha, he is called a yoga bhrashta in his next birth. So in English, a spiritual genius, a spiritual prodigy, one who has not got, moksha. For example, we can think of Ramana Maharaj. All his previous lives would have given him the status, but for some reason, enlightenment was only in this current life where he was having the body of Ramana Maharaj. So when he was born, he was a Yoga Bhrashta. And then this Yoga Bhrashta, he did whatever sadhana he had to do, whatever sadhana was left to be completed. And therefore, he got moksha this lifetime. So Yoga Bhrashta is a person who has not got moksha in the previous lives. Okay. What happens to him? Abhijayate Gehe is reborn. Gehe means Ghare or in the family. He is reborn in a family of Shuchinam Srimatam, of cultured and prosperous persons. So his parents and grandparents and the people around him are cultured and prosperous. So in short, these people who have done lots of good karma and therefore lots of punyam has been generated, what happens to them after death? They go to the heavens, to the various heavens, depending on the amount of punyam is there. That is what is known as worlds of people who are righteous. Punyakratam lokan. People who have righteous, people who have good karma, go to these worlds, and having lived there for many, many years, he is reborn in the family of the cultured and prosperous people. So that is the idea being conveyed here. For whom is this being conveyed? Yoga Bhrashtaha, the person who has not got punyam in the previous life, in spite of lots of sadhana. So Krishna is telling us what happens to this Yoga Bhrashta. So Samaha Yoga Bhrashtaha, Shankara says Yogaha here has to be equated to Jnanaha, right? So that is one interpretation which is given by Shankara, because Shankara, we all know Shankara has a very strong focus on sannyasa. So Shankara defines Yoga Bhrashta as a Vivadisha sannyasi who has not become a Vidvat sannyasi. I hope you can understand these words. Who is a Vividisha sannyasi?
The one who takes to sannyasa to learn this jnanam.
To learn the jnanam.
Is it
And who is a Vidvat sannyasi?
the one who takes to sannyasa after having got the jnanam?
Got jnanam. Or a Vividisha sannyasi who has got the jnanam and therefore has got converted into, he remains a sannyasi after jnanam also. So that fresh stage after jnanam is called Vidvat sannyasi. Okay. It's not necessary. We have defined Vidvat sannyasi as a person who has got jnanam and taken sannyasa. But it can also be, and more appropriately defined as, the Vividisha sannyasi, the person who took to sannyasa for jnanam and then got jnanam, and therefore his status now converts from Vividisha sannyasi to Vidvat sannyasi. So Shankara says here, Yoga Bhrashta refers to a person who is a Vividisha sannyasi, but who did not become a Vidvat sannyasi before the death of body. In simple language, the thing is that if you look at Shankara's interpretation, Bhrashtaha means what? Failure. Right? So Shankara is drawing a very, very fine point. When he says a Vividisha sannyasi did not become a Vidvat sannyasi, he's talking about failure in jnanam. So that's why he says yoga is equal to jnanam, and Bhrashta means failure in jnanam. So Vividisha sannyasi who has not become a Vidvat sannyasi has failed in his quest, because the very purpose of the Vividisha sannyasa was what? To become a Vidvat sannyasi. And that failure is there. Therefore, he is called Yoga Bhrashtaha, right? Now, in the case of a Grihastha, there is no failure. Why? Because the Grihastha does ritualistic karma, Vaidika karma. That Vaidika karma generates punyam. That punyam is available as a standby for him in the case of the failure of jnanam. And what happens with the standby punyam? He goes to punya lokan, all those punya kritam lokan, all those worlds which are attained by those who have done punya karma. In the case of the sannyasi, he is not allowed to do any rituals, and therefore punyam is not generated. Of course, you can always say that the very study of the scripture itself generates punyam. That's a different argument, but that is not what Shankara is looking at over here. So Shankara says that in case of a grihastha, there is no real problem even if he doesn't get moksha in this life, because the punyam will take him to higher worlds. And either he will come back and be available again, he will do his studies, or he will go to Brahma Loka and get jnanam over there and get moksha. So in case of grihastha, there is no failure if you don't get moksha over here. But in case of a sannyasi, it has become a failure. It's only a technical point. So we need not worry about that. And therefore, punya kritam lokan prapya. That person will go to the heavens, will go to Swargaloka, any of the Swargalokas, including Brahmaloka. So here, the material benefit, Laukika benefit is being pointed out. For the Grahastha who has done Jnanam and all the karma also, there is no real failure because he goes to Swargaloka anyway, which is a material benefit. And not only will he go there, Sashwati Samaha Ushitva. He will Samaha. Okay, the word Samaha has to be understood carefully. Samaha normally means equal to. Sama. Okay. But here, again, we know this from Shankara's Bhashyam only. Samaha is taken as Samavastra. Samavastra. Sama means Varshani. Samavastra Varshani. How the number of years. The long number of years. So Shashwati Samaha, Samaha should be taken as equal to years. And therefore, YEARS, not EARS. So Shashwati Samaha remains there for many, many years. Ushitva remains there for Shashwati Samaha many years. And Ushitva is not just remaining there. Ushitva means he remains there and has bhoga also. He enjoys the pleasures of Swargaloka. All the sakama karma phalam he will enjoy. So what is being indicated very subtly? It is not the Tatparyam of Vedanta. Okay. But Vedanta is indicating that Vedanta Shravanam can produce material punyam also, and such a strong punyam that he can go to Swargaloka. Okay. And once having gone there and enjoyed the pleasures and completed his prarabdha over there, what happens? Yoga bhrashtaha abhijayate. That yoga bhrashta is reborn. Why? Because his primary focus in his earlier life was what? Study of Gita Upanishad for the purpose of moksha only. And therefore, after having enjoyed the punya karma in Swarga, he gets an appropriate birth for continuing the spiritual sadhana. So Shravanam, Mananam, Nidhyasanam, he will continue in his next birth. And Ishvara as Karma Phaladata will ensure that that particular birth is given. What particular birth? That birth where the conditions are appropriate for continuing spiritual sadhana. And there are two possibilities in this birth. So the first one is Suchinam Srimatam Gehe. So Suchi indicates purity, right? So Suchinam Srimatam Gehe, he will be born in the fact. Srimatam is prosperity. Suchinam is purity, so cultured. And therefore, that's why I said Suchinam Srimatam Gehe is a prosperous family, a cultured family. His parents will be prosperous and cultured. And Suchihi indicates culture where dharma is there, values are there, religion is there, and knowledge is there. And therefore, Shankara comments upon this as those people, Suchinam Srimatam has to be taken as those people who follow the lifestyle prescribed in the Veda. So first, Krishna is saying that he will be born in a family of parents, no family as such, not just parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, or we have large families. The family, everybody will be following the lifestyle prescribed in the Veda, and therefore it's a conducive family for continuing his studies, for continuing his search for prosperity, for moksha. Not only that, Srimatam, in a prosperous family also. Why? Because in a prosperous family, basic needs are already provided. One does not have to work hard for your basic needs because the family is prosperous. Therefore, there is leisure and scope for using that leisure time for pursuit of spirituality instead of anything else. And that is why Suchina, cultured family also. So a message conveyed here is that a prosperous family should always be a cultured family because money without culture is dangerous. And in a prosperous family where there is culture, that money will be used for spirituality, right? But in a prosperous family where there is no culture, there will be spirituality, but a different type of spirituality, right? It's a spirituality found in bars. And therefore, he is very, very careful that that family must be spiritual and must be prosperous, so that the money will be utilized in the right type of manner. What is the right type of manner? To enable this yoga brashta to continue his studies without any too many demands on his time and get jnanam and get moksha. Okay, so I said there are two possibilities. So this was the first possibility. What is the second possibility that Krishna outlines in the next verse, which we will chant? So please unmute yourself. Athva yoginameva
अथवा योगिनामेव
kule bhavati dhimatam
भवति धीमताम्
etadhi durlabhataram
एतद्धि दुर्लभतरम्
loke janma yadidrisham.
लोके जन्मैदृशम्.
So this is the second type of family, and that is why Krishna begins athava. Athava means athava. Somebody is still talking, so please. Athava means otherwise, alternatively. Kule bhavati. So bhavati here has to be taken as being born. Jayate. Kule jayate. Athava, this yoga brashta, he is born kule in a family. Dhimatam yoginam eva, where there are all jnanis. Yogis are there, jnanis are there. Dhimatam yoginam is a jnani of wise yogis are there. And idrasham janma, such a birth, yat etat durlabhataram hi loke. So he says this kind of a birth, the second type of birth, where you are born in a family of sages, of jnanis, where your mother and father are both jnanis, etat durlabhataram hi loke. Such a birth is extremely rare in this world. It requires a huge amount of punya, right? So athava. Athava means for a yoga brashta. And for a yoga brashta, when after the experience of papa anubhava, punya anubhava in Swargaloka, after the experience of punya phalam in Swargaloka, second possibility is there. And Shankara says athava should be taken as Srimadam Kulat Anyasmin, other than the cultured family referred to in verse number 41. So Shankara's description of athava is very clear. Athava means in a family which is other than the type of family mentioned in the last verse. And Shankara, of course, adds further. Okay, here Krishna says yoginam kule, in the family of wise sages. Shankara writes daridranam yoginam kule. He means a family who has no money. So Shankara wants to show that money is not a criteria for a jnani. So daridranam yoginam kule, a family with no money at all. A family of jnanis, the parents are jnanis, and what is being very subtly implied is that wherever there is jnanam, whether you have money or not, is not an issue at all. Poverty will not be a matter for, complaining, right? So there is a sloka actually. Na khalu dhanatvam jatirasya yidishtham tadeva tasya dhanam. Right? What does it mean? Na khalu janatvam, there is no such thing as wealth in this srishti, in this creation. But, so jatirasya, in this, all that is born in this creation, na khalu dhanatvam, there really is no such thing as dhanatvam, as wealth. What is the wealth then? Yadishtham tadeva tasya dhanam. Whatever you love, that alone is your wealth. A beautiful little sloka. Na khalu dhanatvam jatirasya yadishtham tadeva tasya dhanam. Do not think that there is such a thing called money in this creation, wealth in this creation. Whatever you love, that alone is your wealth. So, the idea here is that this particular jnani, normally when you take sannyasa, what happens? You renounce things. But Here Shankara adds Daridranam Yoginam, which means that he has no money, he has no possessions, and therefore there is nothing to renounce. And again, a very beautiful little analogy. Because you have nothing to renounce, you do not have to specially practice sannyasa. Sannyasa is embedded into your being. And therefore, Dhimatam and Yoginam should be connected over here. Wise sages. What is the advantage? This Yoga Brashta is born in the family of a mother and father who are both jnanis. He need not go in search of a guru. The normal families, you have family quarrels about vegetables and food and all that. Conversations are anything but Vedanta. So in this particular family, all conversations are about Vedanta only. And therefore, he's a very lucky person. Because from day one, whatever words he is hearing will be only Vedanta. So his spiritual progress is guaranteed. Anyway, he's a Yoga Brashta. He has already reached almost at the tip. All it needs is a small little push and he will get his moksha. But Krishna adds one clause over here. Etad hi durlabhataram loke janma. Such a birth is very, very rare. Why? Because jnanis themselves are rare. And Shankara says that such a birth is extremely difficult. Why? Because the environment for jnanam is available from birth itself for this person. Right? And such a birth means that jnanam is guaranteed, moksha is guaranteed. From day one, the Yoga Brashta will listen to discussions about moksha, dharma, mahavakyam. Okay. Of course, the downside, there will be no 5-star parties or foreign holidays. But in the next chapter, Krishna says, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatadamapi siddhanam kaschinma veti tatvataha. Jnanis themselves are extremely rare, he says. And among the jnanis, we are talking about parents, a grahastha jnani. So jnanis themselves are rare in this world. But to get two jnanis under one roof as a grahastha, that is even more rare. So why does Krishna mention two types of families? Because remember that he is not, Yoga Bhrashta is not a jnani as yet. Right? And therefore, what type of family it is, whether it is the prosperous cultured family or the family of sages, there are two options. That depends upon the punya karma of the Yoga Bhrashta. Right? Remember that the failed previous janma, failed in the sense Yoga Bhrashta of the previous janma, because he did not have success in getting moksha, that is the very bija, that is the very seed of the spiritual genius in this janma. And such cases, they don't need a guru in the current janma. And as I said, like Ramana Maharshi. But these are all exceptions. Okay. And there are many teachers, I won't name them. There are many teachers living today who quote Ramana Maharshi and said, he didn't need a guru. So why would I need one? I don't need guru for jnana. I have moksha already. So Ramana Maharshi said, who am I? So Ramana Maharshi's mantra was, who am I? And then he got moksha. So why can't I get moksha? In saying all this, they forget that all this is applicable only to Yoga Brashtas, and they are not Yoga Brashtas. So the answer for most people when they inquire, who am I, without any teacher, what is the answer? The answer is, I am an idiot, wasting my time. So, a teacher is required for all of us. And whenever a teacher says, somebody comes and says, I don't have a guru, I am not saying he is not enlightened. He could be enlightened. You would say namaskara to him and run away. Because without a guru in this life, what is the criteria for, why do we say that the teacher has to have a guru in this life? There are two criteria for a teacher. One is, he should be enlightened. Another is, he must have had the teaching in this life. Unless he has had the teaching in this life, he will not know how to teach. He has the jnanam of the previous life, but the teaching methodology, the sampradaya, that what we retain. And that is why you will find that people who read, say, Ramana Maharshi's books without a traditional teacher to guide them, they are thoroughly confused. Ramana Maharshi was a yoga brashta. He didn't have a teacher in his life. He gave his wisdom, but that wisdom needs to be interpreted by a traditional teacher to make sense to us. Okay. Now we look at the next verse. So please unmute yourself and we will chant. Tatra tam buddhi sanyogam
तत्र
labhate paurvadehikam
लभते
yatate cha tato bhuyah
ते च ततो
samsiddhau kuru nandana. So, hey Kuru Nandana, oh, dear one among the Kurus, or oh Arjuna, Tatra. So here remember he is referring to Arjuna as a Kuru, Kaurava, okay? That's a fact because for Pandavas were originally only Kauravas, and that whole problem arose because of Dhritarashtra's lack of vision. So Dhritarashtra's lack of vision is emphasized where? In the first chapter, where he says, what are these people and my people doing? He makes that statement. So he differentiates between Kauravas and Pandavas. Anyway, Krishna knows that Arjuna is a Kaurava, so he says, hey Kurunandana. And Tatra, there, Labhate. Labhate means what? He attains. There is what? In this new birth. Whether it be in the cultured rich family or whether it be in the family of Jnanis, Tatra. Tatra refers to two things. The cultured rich family and the non-rich, not necessarily non-rich, but Shankara says non-rich. So non-rich, wise family. Somebody has unmuted the mic. Please don't do that. Okay. Tatra labhate attains tam buddhi sanyogam. Association with that knowledge. Buddhi sanyogam. Sanyoga is association, connection. Buddhi is intellect, or here buddhi should be taken as knowledge. Tam is that knowledge. Tam buddhi, that knowledge he associates with. Which knowledge? Paurvadehikam. Purvadehikam. Belonging to the Purva Deha. Belonging to his sadhana in the previous birth. The knowledge comes. Very clear indication that this is a pramanam, which says that the knowledge which you get in one birth, even if it doesn't take you to moksha, that knowledge is not lost when you come to the next birth as a yoga brashta. You don't have to start all over again from Tattvabodha. You already have the knowledge. And therefore, Tatra labhate tam buddhi sanyogam paurvadehikam. He has got associated, he has got back that knowledge which was in the previous birth, and then yatate. Then he does some more sadhana, and tata bhuyaha samsiddhau. He gets sadhana, more sadhana. Tatha bhuyaha, more sadhana he does. For what? Samsiddhau, for liberation. So tatra. In that new janma, either in the prosperous cultured family or in the Jnani's family, tam buddhi sanyogam labhate. So buddhi normally can have three different meanings in Shastra. Intellect, intelligence, or knowledge. Okay. And strangely enough, Shankara chooses to ignore that word. Shankara normally comments on every word, but here Shankara chooses to ignore that word. And when Shankara, the Bhashyakara, ignores, the sub-commentator Anandagiri has to step in. So Anandagiri says that buddhi here means jnana, knowledge. So this jiva gets associated with the knowledge, with the jnanam that he acquired in the previous body. Purva Dehikam. Purva Dehikam is Purva Devikam. In the previous body, he has acquired that knowledge. And Labhate. Labhate here can be taken as even without a guru. He gains that jnana. Remember, between the two janmas, Sthula Shariram alone is different. Sukshma Shariram remains the same. Sukshma Shariram did not die. Sukshma Shariram got the knowledge, the mind was there, intellect was there, and therefore Sukshma Shariram has the punyam, the viveka, the vairagyam, everything which was there in the previous body, and it takes another body. So the mother gives birth only to the body of the child. But every body, every child comes with its own sukshma shariram, its own bundle of vasanas, inclinations, everything. And that is why in one family, if you have two children, you will find that they are different in character. And now if you look at the age of people in Vedantic pursuit, you can actually look at this very class. Okay. You will find some young guys, you will find some older people, all types are there. Okay, so some young guys, like many of you, are interested in spirituality. Some older people, like many of you, are interested in spirituality. But if you look around you in this world, you will find the majority of older people, they have no interest in spirituality. They only want more and more channels on TV. So they're extremely externally oriented. And therefore, the age of the mind is to be taken as different from the age of the body. So you can have a young body, but with an old mind. So jnana vriddha, it is called. A person whose body is young, but the mind is elder. Vriddha is elder over here. The mind is mature, the mind is elder. And such a mind, tam buddhi sanyogam labhate parvadeka. In such a case of a yoga brashta, jnanam comes automatically. Jnanam is not lacking anyway, because jnanam was there in the previous birth. And that is why he associates with that jnanam. What was missing in the previous birth? The nishtha, the assimilation was missing. In the previous birth, the knowledge was not assimilated in spite of nididhyasanam because of some pratibandha, right? So it's like adding sugar to tea. Now you come to my house and then I offer you tea and I ask you how many spoons and you say 1 spoon or 2 spoons, you say, and add 2 spoons. Then you sip the sugar, the tea, and you say it's not, sweet. So it is not lack of the sugar, because tea is already, the sugar is already there in the tea. It's not the lack of the sugar that is the problem here. It's the lack of stirring, right? So the knowledge is there in this yoga brashta, but like the stirring of the sugar, the knowledge has not been stirred. It has not been assimilated, right? That knowledge is like the embers of coal. It is covered by ash, but blow on it and it will flare up. Therefore, even an accidental falling on the ears of some Vedanta talk, this person, he may have come to a particular age without any interest in Vedanta because he never heard of the thing, of that particular thing at all. So he may be 15 years old or 17 years old, and he may be playing chess, or he may be shaving, or something, maybe he may be eating. Some Vedanta talk on TV, where somebody talks. Those words, those are like the blowing of air on the embers, and it produces the flame. So is such a jnanam possible? What is the shastric pramanam? There is pramanam. So this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad talks about Vamadeva, who got jnanam in his mother's womb. Okay, it's possible, but one should not think that everyone can use Ramana Maharishi's exam, right? So it's there for a yoga brashta only who had enough sadhana in his previous births to almost get moksha, but just fell short. Such a person is called a yoga brashta. And then for this yoga brashta, how much sadhana is required? The fact that he did not get moksha in his previous birth in spite of the jnanam, it means there was some pratibandha, there was some obstacle. So just enough sadhana to remove that obstacle is required. And therefore, only Nididhyasanam is sufficient. And that too, depending upon the obstacle and the punyam, the environment is already there, remember. Depending upon the obstacle, the Nididhyasanam can be 1 day or 10 years. And therefore, this person, he gets moksha almost helplessly. In spite of himself, he may not want moksha, but he gets it. Right? So, to introduce the next verse, Shankara raises a question. Katham buddhi sanyogaha. How does this person get connected to Atma Jnanam of Purva Janma? So that's what we said here. He said, Tatratam buddhi sanyogam. This person gets connected to the Atma Jnanam of the previous Janma. And a logical question here by a person who is listening carefully is okay, fine. He gets connected to the previous birth Jnanam. What is the process? How does he get connected? Shankara says the next verse number 44, is an answer to that question. So we will chant that verse. Verse number 44. Purvabhyasena tenaiva
पूर्वाभ्यासेनैव
ह्रियते यवशोऽपि सः
यवशोऽपि सः
जिज्ञासुरपि योगस्य
जिज्ञासुरपि योगस्य
शब्दब्रह्माति वर्तते
ब्रह्माति वर्तते
So, here is the answer. He says, you look at the last two words of the first line. Yavasho api saha. So you break it up into saha api yavasaha and hriyate. So the whole last three words, they can be rearranged that saha, he, hriyate. Hriyate means taken. Saha, he, hriyate. Indeed, he is taken where? Towards moksha. How? Api avashaha. Helplessly, he is taken to moksha. Even if he doesn't want to, he is going to get moksha. Tena eva purva abhyasena. Because of that previous sadhana of his. And api jignasu yogasya. As a seeker of moksha, yoga here is moksha. As a seeker of moksha, ativartate shabda brahmaha. Ativartate, he goes beyond. Shabda Brahma means karma kanda here of the Vedas. So he goes beyond rituals, he goes beyond karma. Helplessly, he is drawn towards moksha because of his previous practice. And as a seeker of that moksha, he goes beyond karma. He becomes a jnani. So wherever there is anything connected with jnana, this person will be attracted. So in the beginning stages, it may be non-understanding attraction. Attraction is inside. When you hear somebody talking about Brahman or Atma or Self or Atma Jnanam, he will feel an interest, but he will not know why. Okay. That is why in any Gita class you see there will be elderly people also, there will be youngsters also. Because some people are drawn in spite of themselves. Why? Purva Abhyasena. Because of Purva Abhyasa, because of the Vasana of the previous life. Without any reason, you will find that some people seem to be attracted to spirituality. You will find them frequenting ashram, even when they are 20 years old. And some people who are 70 years old also, they will dislike ashram. So, tena eva, because of that previous vasana, pura vasana, kriyate, this person is taken towards, is attracted by anything which is connected with Vedanta, with spirituality. And therefore, saha avasha api, unknowingly, helplessly, even though the world is saying that become a CEO, materialistic pleasures are outside, people, his parents are saying, go and earn your living, make a mark on the world, he will find that helplessly he turns towards spirituality. So spiritual maturity is basically born out of an evolutionary process. You cannot force it onto anybody. But if enough sadhana has been there, and if the right environment is there, this samskara will come, this maturity will come. And it is not that this person has no other vasanas. So that interpretation is not to be given. It is not that his only vasana is jnana vasana. He has other vasanas also. But the strongest vasana is jnana vasana, is Vedanta vasana, moksha vasana. And therefore that is so strong that it overcomes all the other vasanas. And that is why he says avashapi. Helplessly, he is drawn towards jnanam. So hriyate can mean dragged. Helplessly, he is dragged towards jnanam. Right? And you have to note that this is true not only of Vedantic prodigies, right? Not only of spiritual prodigies. This helpless drawing towards something is because of previous lives. So Mozart, they say, was playing the piano at 2 years of age. Okay, at 2 years of age, when children don't even know what swara is. Another example is, I don't know if you've heard of it. There's a gentleman, there's a person called Aelita Andre. He's an Australian. He was born 2007. He's a painter. He started, she started painting at 9 months of age. At 9 months of age, where children don't know how to hold a brush, this lady, Aelita, she started painting. And she had her first exhibition, it seems, at the age of 2. How do you explain? Purva Abhyasena. Only through Abhyasa. Okay. So SPG tells the story of a swimming competition, you know. So this is, of course, just to divert. He tells the story of swimming competition where a lot of contestants were ready and the starting gun was about to go off. And when the gun went off, all the participants jumped, and then a few seconds later, one more boy jumped. And as it happened, the boy who jumped later, he was the boy who won the prize. Okay. The boy who jumped later, he won the prize because he was late in jumping, and yet he won the prize. Now, when he was standing on the dais, you know that you have this prize distribution. So you stand there on number 1, number 2, number 3. So this guy was standing on number 1, and he was looking all around the place like that. So somebody said, you know, young man, you won the prize. Why are you so distracted? This guy said, no, I had come to watch the competition and somebody pushed me into the water. So I'm looking around to find who it was who pushed me into the water. Helplessly, he won the competition in spite of not wanting to win. So that is to illustrate, the story is to illustrate avashaha api hriyate. Helplessly, this person, he will get moksha. Okay. And jignasurapi. So jignasurapi means even though he has a little jignasa only initially, only little curiosity is there initially, but he is like camphor. What is speciality about camphor? You bring a flame close to it, it catches fire. The Yoga Bhrashta is a camphor student. Just bring him around a flame and he bursts into flame. Right? And Shankara adds a note in his Bhashyam. He says, you may be a prodigy, you may be a Yoga Bhrashta, but even as a Yoga Bhrashta, this world, there are many, many temptations. And everybody around you, especially if you go to school or something, everybody around you, he will urge you to go on the path of laukika enjoyment, worldly enjoyment. So because you are a Yoga Bhrashta, you will still get moksha in this life. But why does Shankara say that you have to be very alert? Because if you are not alert, the environment will make sure that you go along a wrong path, and you will waste precious years of your life before you realize that there is something wrong in this path that I have chosen. Before you realize that, oh, I'm not getting satisfaction from this. And so Shankara adds that because you are Yoga Brashta, the Purva Janma Samskara will not be lost, but they will be temporarily overpowered and will remain dormant. And sooner or later, your punyam will ensure that the right circumstances, the right environment appears. And when that appears, then your Janma Purva Samskara will flare up and you will achieve moksha again. Moksha will achieve, not again, you will achieve moksha. You will get Nididhyasanam practice and you will get assimilation, Jnana you will get. This is why this reason of Shankara's is very important. Because this is why in India you lay so much stress on providing a religious atmosphere for children. Right? Because if the child has remained in that religious atmosphere for the first 18 years, he may go to US or England or Australia for studies, and there he will focus on the material life. But the samskara will never be lost. Sooner or later, it will find a way to manifest itself given the circumstances. And therefore, Krishna says, Shabda Brahma Ativartate. Shabda Brahma is a technical word indicating Karma Kanda of the Vedas. Karma Kanda of the Veda indicates finite results. Therefore, Shabda Brahma Ativartate means he transcends the finite results, which means he goes beyond Punyam and Papam, which means he gets moksha, and therefore he goes on that Jnana Marga path, which is a one-way path. There is no return from that path. That person does not come back. So with this, we'll stop for today. Any questions? Answer. It's a very nice discussion. It answers the question of what happens if I am not able to achieve moksha. Have I lost so many years of my life? Do I have to come back and start from Tattva Bodha the next life?
Sir,
So, Acharya
Yeah.
Acharya when Arjuna asked about such a person, when he used this word Yoga Brashta, it was not for a sannyasi. So, how will a grahastha be termed in such a situation?
Yoga Brashta, Shankara says, refers to a sannyasi.
Ji.
In Shankara's language, everybody is sannyasi. In Shankara's language, unless you are a sannyasi, you are not a human being. Okay, so that we need to temper. In fact, that is why there is a text called Ashtavakra Geeta. The problem with studying Shankaracharya is that throughout all the bhashyams, Shankara's major focus is sannyasa. And for Shankara, if you are not a sannyasi, there is something drastically wrong with you. So he doesn't classify you under human being. And therefore, you have other teachers who interpret slightly differently. There's also a very beautiful text called Ashtavakra Geeta, where Ashtavakra Rishi tells very clearly that sannyasa doesn't mean wearing the yellow robes. And this we saw in the beginning of this chapter. What did we see in the beginning of this chapter? Which is the verse?
Internal sannyasa. Grahastha can have internal sannyasa.
Yes. So, the second verse, Nahi asanyasta sankalpaha yogi bhavati kasyana. Right? Nahi asanyasta sankalpa. Without giving up desires or expectations, yogi na bhavati kasyana, nobody can ever become a sannyasi. But Krishna himself says, Shankaracharya's interpretation is always sannyasa, sannyasa, sannyasa. But being the majority as grahasthas, we have to take it that the robed sannyasa, the formal sannyasa is not real sannyasa. Sannyasa is the ability to renounce your desires in this world. All desires belong to the human body alone, human mind alone. And if you are able to renounce those desires, if you are able to act against those desires, then you have become a sannyasi. So that is the meaning we have to take. And that meaning is reinforced in Ashtavakra Gita, which of course we will study much later, after we have studied all the Upanishads.
Ji, thank you. Another question, Acharya ji. In verse 41 and 42, two options were given about the kula in which the yoga brashta is born.
Yeah.
One was Shuchinam Srimatam, the other was Kule
Yoginam eva.
Bhimatam.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, is there any difference between the two? Because the two are given?
Yes. The difference is because one is a cultured, prosperous family, one who may not be jnanis. They have got culture, right? They could be jnanis, but they may not be jnanis. The other is family of jnanis. So culture is taken for granted, but Srimatam, money is not taken for granted, right? And among the two, Krishna says, Ethadi Durlabhataram. The second one is
so
a
the
very rare
40
birth.
is better. Okay.
More difficult birth to get. So which means that
because
you
the
Guru is there available, right?
Ji.
And if Guru is also not available, he himself doesn't need a Guru, he said. But the environment is available. He listens to Jnanam all the time. The first word that falls on his ears will be Jnanam only. So that Yoga Brashta will flare into Jnana Nishtha very soon. And the difference is what? The difference is the amount of punyam that the Yoga Brashta came with. Lower punyam will get you Shuchinam Srimatam Gehe. Higher punyam will get you Yoginam Tematam.
And Acharya ji, if one of us grasta drops without getting the Mukhya Phalam in this Janma, so and
Depending
we are
upon
born
your punyam, you will be in one of those two categories, the next birth. Yeah, but
Okay.
remember one thing, that this is all good. It is there for Krishna is telling for the, what they call, and has given a very clear indication also that once you come on to the Jnanam path, it is unlikely that you will fall back into a lower. If you look at the whole discussion, first he said that once you have come to this path, you will not be born in lower being than as a human being. And now he says, if you have come onto this path and you've advanced sufficiently, but you not got moksha, then you will definitely get moksha in the next birth because you will fall under one of these two rebirths.
And so this word Parva Dehikam, will it also refer to a prodigy?
Parvadekam simply means that you have got the knowledge from the previous birth. Either case, you are a Yoga Varashta. Whether you are born to a cultured rich family or to a family of sages, jnanis,
Ji.
that is the birth. But you are Yoga Varashta any case.
Ji.
That is the point.
Ji,
But you know, all that is good enough. But the point I would like to stretch over here is that don't even look at these things because your objective is very simple. What is the objective? I am Brahman understanding in this very birth. Why would you want another birth? Whether it be family of cultured or it's only a consolation prize. We don't want consolation prizes. We are all looking for first prize only.
Nitya Mukta.
Nitya Mukta, how we are going to be.
Sir,
Thank you.
you said that the person Yoga Bhrashta, he's born in a family of wise people. He needs to be very alert. So can you just repeat that? Why?
You need to be alert because even though you are born in the best of families, you have environment around you. You go to school, you find your friends smoking and drinking, you find them all rich friends with you, they all want materialistic things in life. So you might be tempted to go along, and therefore you should be alert.
So this in the example of the painter and the musician of their previous birth, so their sadhana was non-spiritual, and that's how that their sanskaras were carried on.
Yeah, that's why I said the vasanas need not, when we say vasanas, it is not necessarily only spiritual vasanas. Anybody who is a prodigy in any field, obviously the knowledge is there in him, right? It doesn't come randomly. It has to be from the previous birth only.
But sir, being a already have attained the wisdom that that's the path I want to take, and whatever the influences are other than the family is there, he would be jnani enough to discriminate. Viveka to hoga na uske paas.
But it doesn't tell you when he will attain the wisdom, right? He says, what does he say? Look at the words. He's associated Paurvadehikam. But when?
वो अगर incomplete ज्ञानम होगा तो हाँ.
नहीं, incomplete नहीं. Labhate Paurvadehikam, he will definitely get associated. But when is the question?
Okay.
Before in the 5th year or 6th year, or in the 15th or 20th year, or the 50th year. That's why you should be alert to make sure it comes as early as possible. The only thing is that you're wasting your life. As a jnani, you could enjoy the rest of the life.
ठीक है.
So you're not convinced. But whenever you're not convinced, think. The only way to convince
हाँ, मैं
yourself is to think.
सोचूंगी है ना थोड़ा सा इसके ऊपर. I will.
Okay, so with this we'll stop here. Thank you for your patience. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Om Namah Shivaya.